Randy Cross is nice enough to join us here and now on 95.7 The Game, a three-time Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers, the only professional uniform he ever knew, one of the truly great San Francisco 49ers of all time. Randy Cross on with Damon and Ratto. Thank you, Randy. How are you, man?
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction.
We have been talking about how, even though we're all so focused on Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo remaining in the room, really the story of this season begins in front of whoever the quarterback might be, either QB1 or 2, because the biggest, most glaring weak spot on this team was center guard throughout the preseason. They have been telling us, even with a roster move today, they claimed a former Browns guard off of waivers, that they are still looking to improve that group up front as one of the great guards and centers that has ever played for the 49ers. Can you tell us about how crucial those positions are to lock down the right way?
Well, they are with a adequate to good offensive line, they're a Super Bowl team and maybe a Super Bowl champion. But if they're less than that, they're a playoff team. But that's what would hold them back. That's what would stunt the growth of Trey. That's what would stunt the growth of that offense and development of that offense. Which is kind of sad because you've got one of the best to ever do it at left tackle. You got a left side that I think is pretty doggone good. And yeah, there's nothing that's going to be able to do it. They've got to, and it doesn't matter who you put in there. They've just got to play with each other. And it's going to be, unfortunately, the first live bullets or whoever's going to be in there on a full basis is going to be against Chicago. We've got a pretty good front, by the way. So you're going to find out really, really fast, about how good they can be. But I tell you, it's that coordination and that communication. The paychecks and the all whatever teams are one thing, but it's that ability to communicate and function as one. The analogy is always the hand. It hurts like heck to get punched with a fist, but if you get poked with a finger, it's annoying. Well, if they can get 5 guys working as one, that's punching you with a fist.
Randy, we were talking about this earlier, that the biggest missing ingredient, maybe in all of sports these days, but specifically in football, is continuity. And, you played probably with the same 4 other guys for at least a year or two when you were playing. It just feels like there's so much movement now that the sophisticated coordination, especially of offensive line play, is hard to get down unless you got a lot of time worked together, because you do have to feel the other man's tendencies and instincts and, be able to count the same Mississippi in his mind, how long he can hold his block before you might have to start looking for a little help somewhere. I mean, it just feels like so many moving pieces up front in a group that there are questions about to begin with. And we're not trying to go sky is falling radio here, but that's going to be hard to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, we had 4 of the same 5 guys together for 7 years, and we changed left tackles, but that is so important. You're all over it. It's something that you just don't see, that continuity, and I'm not really fully convinced that the value in all organizations is adequately high enough. I think that the best example of having an offensive line and having a Super Bowl team, hell, having a Super Bowl champion, and deciding to spend your money somewhere besides your offensive line is Seattle. Ask Russell Wilson how good his line was, and ask Russell Wilson how bad they got in front of him and how much he ran for his life. And that continuity went completely out of the window. I don't think it's impossible, but boy, it puts such a huge premium on your offensive line coach and your scouting and everybody else working hand in hand and being just incredible teachers, because you've got to sort of develop as you go, even more so. It used to be like that very much, but you've got to really be able to do that right now.
One of the other sort of wild cards in this offensive line is their ability to go from being a predominantly excellent run blocking team to a team that not only has to pass block a little better, but has to be a lot more mobile to help cover when Trey Lance breaks out of the pocket. How easy is that for a unit to do, and can it really be done effectively without changing personnel over the next 2 years or so?
Well, how mobile is mobile for a lineman? In today's game, I'm not sure if there's many linemen, period, that can go anywhere close to running with some of these guys at quarterback. It's one of the things, quarterbacks, in my opinion, Ray, they have to learn how to run the pass, not run to run. Because quarterbacks that run to run don't last. They get beat up, they get hurt. You got to learn how to run the pass. Your line's got to know that. So they've got to know. Not only do you have to know where he's going to be, you're going to have to know where he should be once he starts moving and adjust back to him. But once he gets past the line of scrimmage, he's on his own. You'd love to get down there and help him block, but just the physics and speed of it tell you you're not going to be able to help too much. But I really think as your quarterback develops that ability to move and frustrate defenses with his feet and do that as he's getting ready to throw, I think that's when your quarterback's double dangerous.
Randy Cross here on 95.7 The Game, one of the all-time 49ers. How do you think this quarterback room plays out? It's a unique situation. I think the people declaring it, a failure on arrival are ridiculous, and I also think it might be a little ridiculous to assume, well, there's nothing there. Everyone's such a professional that it's going to be just fine. It's certainly unique.
It's very unique. And I think the reason it'll work is because of the two personalities mainly involved. I think Trey's going to be a pro about it. Trey's got the job. Jimmy G has already proved he can be a real pro about this. And Garoppolo is the designated vulture. His job is to put on the Don Strock windbreaker on the sideline, have a little hat and the clipboard in his hand, and wait until something goes wrong. And sit there on the fence. And if something goes wrong, his job is to go in there and go. And his job isn't to take Trey Lance's job. His job is to come in and win. And as soon as Trey Lance is healthy, he understands he's going to be back in and playing. So, I think they're going to handle it, behind closed doors and in front of everybody else extremely well. I give both those guys a lot of credit for this. And I think the dynamics and the way that they've sort of couched it, I thought it was one of the smarter moves I've seen an NFL team make in a long time. Is swallow a little bit of whatever and say, look, this is going to make us a better team in case something happens. And, not everybody's willing to pay that. Not everybody, ask the Brown family in Cincinnati how much they want to pay for a backup.
You mentioned Don Strock, and I've been trying to find the closest historical parallel to this situation. Might that be it when he was with the Dolphins, or is there one that reminds you more of what the 49ers are doing here?
I'm not sure. I think it's fairly unique. It's I guess being the Niners, people want to say Young in Montana, but this situation isn't quite like that. No, I think it's very, very unique. If you look at, I'll give you one that's kind of old school, Ray. Do you remember back when Pittsburgh first drafted Terry Bradshaw? Who was their quarterback? Won the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, I know. I see his face, and I can't think of his name.
Number 5, Terry Henry.
That's right, Notre Dame.
And and he was a guy that you knew could play. And let's be honest, a backup quarterback's job once you're a backup quarterback, your job is, if you can go in and your team can be 500 with you as a backup, you're doing a hell of a job as a backup. Because if you were a guy that was going to win every game, you wouldn't have lost the job to start with. So I think that's the benchmark. And $6.5 million these days in professional sports, that's a pretty cheap price to pay to know you got somebody that knows what it's like to play in a Super Bowl and NFC Championship game.
Randy Cross here on 95.7 The Game. Let's wrap up with where this conversation kind of began, where you were praising Trent Williams being one of the best linemen in all of football. What about him makes him that?
Well, God blessed him with all the tools you could possibly want, the size, the speed, and everything else. And, he has got that nasty to the way he plays you can't teach. It's also God-given. You have that or you don't have it. And I guess the kids love to call it the dog. He's got lots and lots and lots of the dog in him. He will knock you down and then knock you down again. And if you want to get up a third time, he'd be more than happy to plaster your butt one more time and put you in.
How do you feel about UCLA being in the Big Ten? Be honest.
The UCLA being the Big Ten? Hey, if you were an athletic department and had that much debt, you'd go there, too, for the paycheck. They're cashing the check, and it's going to be tough for them because we talked a lot about offensive lines and line of scrimmage. That's where they've been deficient the last handful of years, and that's where they're going to struggle in the Big Ten.
Well, I'll tell you what, Randy, it was nice catching up with you today. Thank you very much. I don't know what's for dinner in Georgia tonight, but go get it. We appreciate your time.
Salmon, actually. Salmon.
There you go. Salmon. Eating well. That's why he's just
heart healthy.
So freaking handsome after all these years. Randy Cross here on 95.7 The Game. Great to catch up with him. One of the all-time